Good evening, everyone. Merry Christmas. Hope that you are enjoying time with family and friends this holiday season. And even if you aren't, we are here today to provide some resources, some information, and just a gentle conversation to help you in navigating your emotions during this time and perhaps even your grief. Joining me today is a very important person. It's Monday Anderson, and she's going to tell you a little bit about herself. But we wanted to join together to talk about grief during this holiday season. A lot of people are impacted just at holiday times. Everybody is not merry and bright during the holidays and throughout the year. And so here at Corey Empowers, it is our goal to help people to connect to resources that are available in the community and just otherwise have gentle conversations to listen to that are resourceful, informational, and hopefully provide you some guidance in moving forward in your life and whatever you are experiencing at the time. So, without further ado, I welcome Monday Anderson, and she will share a little bit about herself.
Good evening. Good evening. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for joining me, Monday. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. So just a little bit about myself. My name is Monday. It's Ramonday, but I go by Monday because it's easier for everybody to remember the first day of the week, like Monday. But I'm a I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I have two wonderful kids, ages 15 and 9. So that's high school and elementary, the big old gap. But I also work as a human resources specialist. I'm a mentor, and I'm also a storyteller with the Gary Sinise Foundation. So it's a pretty busy life, but I'm enjoying it.
Interesting. Tell us a little bit about the foundation.
So the foundation is by the actor and humanitarian Gary Sinise. You might know him as Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump, but he
Okay.
actually has a foundation for families of fallen military and first responders, along with assisting veterans and just pouring out to the military community and first responder communities because it's often forgotten after the loss of your spouse or your loved one. So he just wants
Mm,
us to make sure that he's there for us and he supports us, and we are very thankful for this foundation.
okay. Well, you mentioned that you are a wife and a mother. Tell us about what moment changed your life.
So the moment that changed my life was 16 years ago. I was married to my fallen hero. His name was Petty Officer George Casher, and he passed away unexpectedly in an accident. And I was 14 weeks pregnant at the same time, and it
Mm.
was a very difficult time trying to figure out what in the world was going on with my life. I was completely lost. So yeah, it's been 16 years now, but it's been a long road of just navigating grief.
Mm. How do you know that it's grief? Like, did you know that for yourself, or how did you become connected with the word and phrase and what people may generally know about grief?
So in the beginning, I would say 4 years into uh, being widowed, I did try or attempt to go to therapy. And there
Mm,
were some things that I was describing about what I was feeling. And at the time, I didn't recognize it, but it was anger. And she was like, you're in the stages of grief. So that was the first time it was introduced to me, the word grief. And then realizing it's not linear. It goes up, it goes down, it's always with you, but there are feelings that are associated with grief that we may not acknowledge at times.
mm. And how has grief shaped your life?
So I always heard that grief gets better with time. It's something that's very common that you hear a lot of times with people that over time grief gets better, and I don't think that it gets better. It's something you learn to live with because, like I said, it's not linear. It's You have your highs and your lows. It can be a scent, a song, a saying, um, a memory that can trigger or jog an emotion out of you that you probably hadn't experienced in, let's just say, 2 to 3 years. So it's
Mm-hmm.
something, like I said, that you live with, but you learn to live with it, but it's not a bad thing. I think grief is just love for somebody that's no longer physically there. It's just love. That's all it is. So I think we have to shape our view a little bit differently of what grief is. It's just a part of our life. And it's not even grief of a person. It can be grief of a dream, an idea. It can be anything, but you experience phases of feelings and emotions from grief, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's all just learning, what grief is and our experiences, whether they're a part of grief or some other type of emotional experience. So you mentioned about going to counseling. Is that something that you have continued in your life, or you found other ways to manage your experience with grief?
So in the beginning, my therapist, I did not like, I didn't like her. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't like her.
Yeah.
And I stopped going.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, let's say, 4 years in. So he passed in 2008. So 4 years in, I stopped going. I went maybe 2 or 3 times and I just stopped because I just did not, I didn't feel good. So fast forward to 2020 was the next time that I actually had therapy. And I decided to go about it a different way. I did my research, for one, to find out who was in my community. And then plus it's COVID, so we need telehealth. And then I wanted somebody that had like-minded ideals or beliefs in my faith. And then I also learned you have to date your therapist. So I dated my therapist until I found the one that was right for me, which is life-changing. So
Mm-hmm.
I would advise or recommend therapy, suggest it. You said other ways that I've dealt with grief, or
Yeah, if
sorry.
you weren't still going through with therapy and with a counselor, a mental health professional, I wanted to know if there were other ways in which you were managing your experience with grief. But being that you are still seeing a mental health professional, are there other things in addition to therapy that you have found to be helpful in your journey?
I would say joining or volunteering for the organization that I have been affiliated with for the last 5, 6 years. I return back, and I will say this: the organization puts on an annual event every December for families of fallen military and first responders. He charters them to Disney. So my experience was with my son almost 10 years after his death, and
Mm.
was so impacted by my experience that I was asking, like, how do I come back to volunteer? So within that, I volunteered serving these families for almost 4 years, but it was more of me being able to share some type of my experience to some of these families and people that I was volunteering with, which we began to share our stories and we became our own little tight knit family. So
Mm.
it's almost like our own little group therapy where we have a safe place to just say, hey, I have a question. And some of these women have been 20 years out with kids that are empty nesters. And I'm realizing I have different phases as well with my children that I can ask questions like, how did you deal with your child going to high school and let's say getting a girlfriend? Like, and then how do you honor your loved one? Like, it's just things that I get to ask them. So that organization is an outlet, and then also becoming a speaker, being able to share my story to people. So it's healing me talking about it instead of it being bottled up. Somebody's going to connect to your story. So those are my top three.
That is powerful. Very, very
So,
powerful. Yes, people do connect to real, authentic stories and relatable stories, ones that show our true authenticity and vulnerability and real life human experiences. So I am very happy for you in making your decision to share your story in an effort to help other people who may have same and similar experiences, and just knowing that there is a path forward, no matter how long it takes you to move forward, that there is a path forward. And that's very inspiring. So I just want to take a pause to acknowledge that. That's very inspiring. And I'm really happy that you are choosing to use your story to help others.
Thank you.
And it also seems like you're motivated. You're motivated now. And what, not that you weren't motivated before, but working with this foundation, has that been instrumental in helping you to increase your motivation to help other people? Or how has, or what has motivated you?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So right before I got engaged to William, that's my husband, William. We've been married 10 years now. And right before we got engaged, my dad actually, I met my dad in Las Vegas. I was introducing him to William, and my dad wanted to introduce me to a friend of his who became an author. And so I thought that was a perfect opportunity to ask this guy 1,000,005 questions on how can I become a writer, because I wanted to talk about my experience of being widowed and restoration and healing and moving forward. Like I wanted to be some type of like beacon of hope for people to say, okay, I can do this too. And this man was like, tell me a little bit about your story. And I started rambling off some stuff, and he just cuts me off and he says, your story is no different from anybody else. And quite frankly, nobody gives a bleep about your story. And that shut me up for 10 years. Well, 8 years. I'll say it shut me up for 8 years. I didn't talk about it. I didn't mention, I didn't journal it. I didn't nothing. I shut down. And it wasn't until I went to it was a storytelling conference or workshop through the organization that I was just speaking to before, where I mentioned the same thing I just said to you. And the guy says to me, the facilitator was like, that's your story. That's your story. Like whatever you came in here with that you thought you were going to tell, that ain't it, but that's your story. And from that day on, again, started telling it and retelling it and framing it and getting to the bones of what I feel like my purpose is here. And not saying why I went through what I went through, but I believe that I can help somebody to say, hey, this is what I did. And this is how I got through it. And, oh, yeah, you did this. There's no shame in that, because through grief, we do things that we're trying to fill in the void of what we lost. So it's no judgment. So that's why I'm motivated. I want everybody to know everybody has a testimony. Everybody has a testimony. We all get tested. And if you tell that story, somebody else is going to learn from what you've experienced and gain wisdom from that. And maybe even healing.
Wow. So a part of your journey is just, being a mother. How did you navigate your mothering with a child who would be born and his father no longer being present? That seems like a very, very important aspect of your story. But you seem to have been able to do that very well in terms of incorporating his memory, his presence. So while, your son may not have physically been able to know him in person, right, you have kept his memory alive. How did you do that? And what did you find helpful, or who did you find helpful in helping to create that space for your son?
I think that was something that was always in me. I did not care if I got remarried again. My prayer has always been, Lord, whoever I marry will treat my son and love my son as if it was his own seed. And if you did it for Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, like, why can't you do it for me too? Like, that's how I really, and I mean, literally, you did that in real time. So he's blessed me with an awesome husband who also allows me space, a safe space to, if a memory pops up, it's okay. It's not like I'm asking you to fill the shoes of, big cash. I'm not asking you to do that, but sometimes a memory would just pop up and I can laugh. And he may not get it, but then it's also stories that I can tell my son, because he needs to know where he came from. And I think that's always important. We got to know where we come from. And he was respectful and kind and a gentle giant. And you can be that much more greater too, because you have two examples that you can model yourself after. But I also had to have support within my circle or my community who would honor both. Like, there's no disrespect. It can't be no disrespect because he is a part of his dad, but he's also a part of his father that's present. So it's just been very, I don't want to say strategic, but intentional
Mm-hmm.
about how I wanted to go about raising my son in a blended family, and again, I'm not trying to name drop this organization, but the organization is great, but he meets other children just like him. And
Right.
they get to share their own experiences and stories of how they had to navigate a loss of a parent who was physically there.
Yeah.
So he's getting these types of experiences and these connections with people. And that's, like I said, it's been through intentionality of how I wanted to raise my son.
So tell us again the name of the organization and where is it based?
It's the Gary Sinise Foundation, and the home base is in Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so there's an annual event each year in which the foundation takes families or
Yeah.
hosts families at Disney World.
Yeah.
How is that experience for children, being that you've gone so many years and now volunteer for that experience? What have you seen, witnessed yourself in terms of how it impacts the lives of the children and just the overall family that participates?
It's allowing, well, what I witnessed was families, and let's just say the first time families. You have some families that are, this is their first time coming to this event. And then you have some families who've come multiple times, through the years of this organization. So to see new families connect with seasoned families who can navigate them, or just see them connect to each other and they become their own little mini family, it's just a full circle. That's what we want. We want connection. So they will know that they're never forgotten. They're never forgotten. And to see children, because again, this is the technology generation. I mean, this is what they exchange IG account names now. That's the new thing. They don't exchange phone numbers. They exchange but to see even that, where I can see a post on Instagram where a child says, "I found my family. I found my people. I found my tribe." That's the whole point of it, because we don't and cannot do life alone. You can't do it. That's not why we were created.
So it sounds like this organization is just invaluable. It's an invaluable resource. It's not just workshops and activities that it has available for families. You mentioned the writing program. What other programs and activities have been helpful for you and your family?
Through the organization, or just outside of
Yes.
through the
The
organization.
organization.
One in particular, well, two, I would say community events. They have community events in a certain amount radius where families again get to come to these events and then connect. It's not just going to an annual event. You have something that's coming in your local town. Also, the empowerment workshops are workshops for widows and young adults, where it tailors them through just learning how to dream, how to navigate their grief, how to be vulnerable, how vulnerability is a strength and not a weakness, even though society has this weird thing about feelings. But we have feelings, like that. We're human, and it's okay to assess what we're feeling and acknowledge it and process through it. I think that's the only way you get through grief, is to go, you got to go through the thing. We can't go around it, over it. We got to walk through that thing, because there's something in that we have to learn.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
That's what
in
I believe.
your learning and walking through grief, what have you found to be most helpful? Like your top three things that have been most helpful in you navigating this journey through grief?
Top three things for me navigating would be, one, I would say I had to learn my identity again.
Mm.
The person I was 16 years ago is no longer the woman I am today. Like, a piece of me died with him. And
Mm.
I used to be this white puppy, rainbow, let's hold hands and kumbaya, and we can all be a family. Like, I believe that. And then learning through grief, it's almost like the scales was like removed from my eyes about how the world is. And it's no shade on it. It's just, we're human. So I
Yeah.
can't expect others to do or think or believe a certain thing that I might do, think, or believe. Everybody's not me. Um, but it taught it. I had to learn how to, we could say, date your friends. Date your friends. Find out how people really are through all seasons of life. Like, I had to learn what I liked again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was weird. Like, I just became a whole different woman. And I'm saying I'm not a bad person. I just matured a lot. So that's one thing I can say. Identity, but my faith. I had to learn how to dig deep and find out in the word myself who God said I was, and to believe that he would not leave me or forsake me in this loss. That he has a plan for my life and it's not to harm me. So I had to learn how to exercise my own faith for myself, because your parents can take you to church. That's one thing, but you got to learn how to find God and find out who you are in God for yourself. That's going to be a one-on-one thing. And I would say a great community would be another thing. A community that supports you, where they say, I listen and don't judge. you need somebody like that that's in your life, that's going to be able to listen to you and be a safe place, and for you to be able to navigate what you're feeling, because them feelings are real. But you need sometime, if it's professional, bounce it off a professional to make sure the thoughts that you're having are valid and can talk you how to navigate grief and these feelings, and maybe look at it from a different perspective. Instead of the world is not ending, this is something you're feeling and it's valid. We got to feel those things. Journaling, writing, breathing, exercise. Like, there's just so many things that they can teach you how to be present in the moment. So those are my top three. And I know I just rambled, but that was a good question.
No, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. I mean, you have indicated finding your own true identity. A lot of people struggle with that and never really tap into who they are for themselves. They are still trying to fulfill the idea of who they are through the lens of their parents or family or expectations of society, which can be dangerous in one respect. But learning yourself, learning the word for yourself, developing your own relationship with God for yourself, and creating your trusted group, your tribe, your village, and those that you can rely on, who have your back no matter what. And we learn that as we go through life and become adults, and maybe not even fully valuing that until we become older adults. So I commend you on that. And I hope that those three things are what helped you to prioritize your mental health. But I would like you to share, you have some great insight in terms of what you have done and what you have found to be helpful. But what really made you prioritize your mental health and well-being?
So this is really, in 2020, and I would never forget this. The world is going crazy at this point. So, we locked in the house. I'm only going outside every now and then if I have to. So everybody remembers 2020. But I remember walking to my garage, and I promise you, that's why I said you got to learn your identity, because the question was jargon. The Holy Spirit was talking to me, saying, "Who are you really?" And that thing shook me to my core, like, and I was experiencing at the time, say, loss of a friendship, where the relationship was no longer the same. It was just done. So I didn't know how to navigate that, because that was almost like 15 years worth of a friendship. So like I said, grief doesn't have to be a loved one. It can be loss of a relationship. And again, walking through the right, and I heard it say, "Who are you really?" And that thing, I didn't know how to answer the question. And that's what made me start seeking out another therapist, because I was like, yo, is this what they talk about, a midlife crisis? Like, a midlife crisis, really, for me, like, what I experienced it's an identity issue. You don't know who you are. So you start doing things that are absolutely crazy because you're trying to figure out who you are. So I didn't want to go down that route. I just wanted to be able to process that. Like, what am I feeling? I don't want to start going crazy. I don't want to be having any identity issues, but I want to really know, like, who am I? And that's when I said I got into my word heavily and finding people with like-minded faith that I can talk scripture to or pray for me or pray with me. So that's why I started prioritizing my mental health. And then from there, I'm learning how to take care of myself. You know, like I gotta sleep, eat, exercise, like prioritizing myself, because if I'm no good, I can't take care of anybody else. If I'm not being poured into, I can't pour into anybody else. So prioritizing your mental health is very important. It makes you first, you know, put you 1st there. You got to go at the top of the totem pole. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. Self first is not selfish. I say that often, and just encourage people to find a way to make sure that they are taking care of themselves, keeping their own cups full as they continue to pour into others. And here at Corey Empowers, we focus on mental health and well-being, and specifically those who are living with severe mental illness and their families and friends that serve as caregivers or supporters, and helping them to navigate this life, because it's very complicated to live life with delusions and hallucinations and psychotic behaviors that are unexplainable to others. So we just openly talk about mental health conditions. All mental health conditions are not equivalent to severe mental illness, which I believe attributes to the negative stereotypes, stigma associated with just generally talking about mental health. With all of that being said, I appreciate you sharing and being open about your journey and finding a mental health professional to be the true resource that you needed again in your life, and being open to that, even though you didn't like your experience with the first one. So it took me 3 times. It took me 3 times to really commit to counseling and understanding its value in my life. And so I highly encourage people to find the right person for them in terms of having a mental health professional as a part of your support team. So just wanted to throw that out there. And thank you for sharing about your prioritization of mental health and well-being. So with having your mental health professional and your village and your faith, and having at least 2 situations that have challenged your knowing for yourself, your identity, what has been the most helpful coping mechanism for you in this full journey of over 16 years now, and now having a teenager that is well on the way to become an adult, as well as a young lady that's entering her teens? How are you moving forward with having your own coping mechanisms for where you are now in life?
So right now, so somebody gave me a useful tool probably about 2.5 years ago, and she said that it's a part of journaling where we take out the time to show gratitude, right? There's so much we can complain about when we get into a habit of complaining, but we never take out the time to count your blessings. Like when they say count your blessings, name them one by one, like that. When you like, God has literally been carrying me through this. So what I do is I write things to be grateful for. So you think a person, place, thing, and a hardship. I have to write down what I'm grateful for, which it forces you to look for things to be grateful in your day. Even if you had a bad day, you can still find 4 to 5 things to be grateful for. That's a great day. Like, it changes your perspective of how you look at your day. So where I can say, Lord, I thank you for that person that bumped into me. But you know what? I didn't step into the puddle. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it's just different perspectives of how to look at things. Like, we just recently had, it was a week of my husband's birthday, actually. We had the hot water heater was overflowing from my attic to the closet down to my kitchen.
Oh my!
So that's what I come home to, and So I go upstairs and I look in the closet and I pull down the attic and I see all this water and I stand there and I lie to you not, I just laugh. Like, what am I supposed to do about there? Here's the funny part. It was all on the side of my husband's closet. I've been asking him for 2 years, hey, clean yours. Do you just go through your clothes and just see if you can give them away, bless somebody with it? And he wouldn't do it. That whole side of that closet is clean now. Like, I was like, Lord, you know, the hot water heater went out, but Lord, my closet is clean. Like, I literally have to have a different perspective of things just because life is too short and I don't want to stress over stuff that I have to question, would this matter in 10 years?
Yeah.
Would I even remember this in 10 years? You know, so I'm just trying to get into a practice of showing gratitude. So that's something that I'm doing. And just journaling about my day, because I feel like maybe it might be a blueprint for somebody else who may experience the same thing that I'm experiencing. And I'm saying to them, like, we can complain about it, or we can say, okay, Lord, what's the lesson in this? Because I don't want to go through this again. Let me get it right this time. So just changing my perspective of how I think.
At helping you with your children and moving them forward as they progress in age.
So I believe there are no rule books to this parenting thing. And with that being said, this is the first time that I have a 15-year-old. And this is the first time I'm going to have a 9-year-old. And I try very hard just to ground myself in the reality of they're navigating the world themselves. So this is something we're experiencing together. I do ask a lot of help from my friends who have teenagers, or especially the boys, because like I said, he's the one who about to be out my house in a couple of years. If they got 20-some years old, I'm asking questions like, how did you navigate this? And they do give me insight on how to approach a situation differently, because I can't mother him. So I'm just going to air quote that. But I'm realizing I have to start detaching myself, because he is going to be in the world and he's going to have to learn how to navigate things. And I want it to be a safe place for him to come back and ask questions for wisdom. Because again, we're both learning this at the same time. But I ask a lot of questions. I ask my friends a lot of questions, because I don't have the answers to everything. And I also give him a safe place to be able to talk about his feelings as well, because I want him to be able to know how to do those things, versus waiting until he's 20 and he's dealing with a situation but never learned how to process his emotions. So let's do this now, you know, so you know how to do these things. And the same with Addie, just on a different level, because she's younger, but she's mature, but she understands. And she comes back and she tells me about the things that she does and the tools that I have given her, how to process your emotions as a young lady. She'll come back and tell me of her successes and sometimes her failures. So it's talking and leaving that communication open, I think is very helpful, because I didn't always have that when I was growing up. Being able to talk as much or ask why or have that open door of that dialogue, because our parents was raised a certain way. So it's just trying to do better and for the next generation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So in terms of the mothering that you did, the air quotes, what does that mean? And how do you move forward with not having quotes around that? What does that mean?
So my son was really big on, it's almost like a mom stop. Mom stop, like don't talk to me in public stage. So it's like I'm mothering him. I'll be like, so I'm trying not to do that, but I'm trying to approach him like a young man. Because now I can be like, hey, I can talk to you how I need to talk to you now, because you tell me not to mother you. So let me talk to you for real, like how I talk to other people. So you know I'm not playing with you. But like, and my daughter's still in the babying stage. I can still baby her. So it's these different phases that I probably was not aware of that my son had to bring to my attention. And I listen, and I'm trying my hardest to not mother him, but still be mom.
Okay. But still be mom. Okay.
But still be mom.
So it sounds like you are very open to feedback, even from your children, and learning from that, and creating other paths forward from the information you receive from your friends, and also in helping your children to have healthy journeys in their own lives.
Yeah.
What piece of advice or wisdom, for that matter, as it relates to grief, would you say has stayed with you? You know, did you receive some piece of advice from someone other than your mental health professional, your therapist? Was there someone who gave you some special piece of advice that you've held on to?
I would say that I've gotten pieces of advice from multiple people
Mm.
who I have shared, or I have been with them as they grieve their own losses. But the thing that they've either shown me or have told me was the only cure for grief is to grieve. And
Mm.
you can still hold joy and sorrow in the same hand. You know, you can still honor your loved ones and find love again. Like, you still have to live, because you cannot live life with your head in the sand. It goes by so fast. I'm talking about, I missed the milestones of my son after he was born because I was grieving. So when I had my daughter, it was different. I didn't care how long it took for her to walk. I just wanted to be able to experience the connection and the bonding and remember the first steps and when they said mama and stuff like that. Like, I can't remember that with my son. And that makes me sad, you know, when I think about that. And it's probably why I'm mothering. It's probably why I do all of that. But it's I don't want to miss a beat. And like I said, my perspectives have changed with life. Just what's important for me. It's being there for my loved ones and my friends and my family, and to anybody that I can show a little light to. Like, life can be still beautiful from your tears, from your ashes. Like, I believe God gives you beauty for your ashes. We just got to go through it, though. You're going to have to go through it.
Yes, as difficult as it may be, we have to continue to move forward. But you know, during the holidays, people may feel like they can't move forward. What do you suggest that they do? And maybe having this overwhelming sense of grief, especially during the holidays.
I would say, if you got those tight-knit people, like I said, that you can have a safe place with, connect with them. People really do want to be there for you. We have to be able to tell them how do we need them for us, because people don't know how to navigate that as well. It's a sensitive subject. And again, like I said, I had some tight people, very thankful for. You know, I can say I would not be halfway near until I, when I connected with the foundation, but that was 10 years of just trying to figure that thing out. And I had really good girlfriends and mentors who I can lean in on and allow me to, just like the Call of Duty games, when you get injured and the team surrounds you so you can reload. I needed to reload. And I got to be able to reload in a safe place and be covered. So I'm really appreciative of that family. But I would say lean in on your people. They really do want to be able to be there for you. We just have to be able to open that door for them and show them or tell them where we need them at. But and there's nothing wrong with still honoring your loved one. There's still nothing wrong with that. Say their name. You know, sometimes we don't even say their name. Just say their name. Remember a memory that had you buckled over in laughter. And if you want to cry, cry. Feel the things you need to feel. But like I said, we are not supposed to do life alone. I really do believe that. And lean in on your people.
I hope during this holiday season that people are able to lean in, allow themselves to lean in
Yeah.
on those who are nearby, who are there for them, want to be there for them. I think is kind of complicated for some people to feel that sense of connection because of the maybe overwhelming level of grief that they feel, and
Yeah.
rather just be in the dark in the bed. So with that, it sounds like that could be a moment to just allow yourself to feel what you feel. I just want to take the time to just share my thoughts on that, in terms of allowing yourself to feel what you feel, because you don't want to force yourself to be merry and bright just because this season says that that's what we're supposed to do.
Right.
Everyone is not merry and bright, and it's okay. Just like any other time of the year, it is okay to not be okay. And I just want to encourage people to take time to allow themselves to process their feelings, to not feel guilty about what they're feeling, but ultimately having a reminder of those who you trust in your life that you might be able to talk to once you want to take a break from being underneath the covers in the dark, for example. Just have the opportunity to allow yourself to feel joy, but not forcing yourself to feel joy. What do you say about that, Monday?
I would agree with that too. Don't force yourself to. Don't You don't have to put on the face. And I think sometimes we do. We mask ourselves from how we really feel and talking about what we really feel. And I'm not gonna lie. In the beginning, there were days I did not get out of bed. I didn't go to work.
Mm.
I didn't go to work. I had a brand new baby and trying to get back into what society says we have to do in a certain time frame that you got to do it in. Like there's no time frame on grief. And I've watched people they don't acknowledge what they're feeling, and it just becomes, I don't know, they become a different person because you're not really allowing the things to actually surface the way they need to surface and process the way they need to process it. But yeah, in the beginning it was hard. It's just I didn't want to talk to people, and I honestly, my mind frame was just getting my baby here safely because I was pregnant, and I didn't want to harm the baby or so. However, I chose to protect my peace. I did it, and if that meant I didn't talk to you, I just couldn't. I didn't have the capacity to do it because my mind was I gotta protect what's in me to get him here safely. So it was a blessing in disguise, honestly, me being pregnant at that time. Because again, I don't think I would have been here.
Mm-hmm.
I would not have been here. So, yeah, like I said, allow yourself to feel what you feel because them feelings are valid. It's real. That stuff is real.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So if you don't mind sharing, you mentioned that you wouldn't be here. That's a powerful statement and can be interpreted in different ways. So I just want to take the time to ask you, what do you mean by that? And
I did not have good thoughts at all about, like, he's gone. I want to go too. Like, I was thinking the same thing. I don't want to be here. There's no way I can live life. I couldn't imagine. I remember thinking, like, I can't imagine a month from now, and then 6 months from now, and then you're thinking a year, 5 years, 10 years, and like I said, like, it's 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's been 16 years, and it's still some days it is fresh as the pain or the emotion or the feeling that I have, a grief I might have, is just as it was the first day when they told me that he didn't make it. And then some days it's other memories are starting to come, or some other new memories are starting to surface, which they're good memories, things that I forgot about. And so I didn't want to be here in the beginning of it. I really do believe that my son was a blessing in disguise. I tell my son, like, you saved my life too. You know, he's experiencing this too. So that's why I have to be very conscious of he's also navigating the loss. I don't know how that feels not to know my parents because they died. You know, I don't know how that feels. So they're still getting his perspective and his experience and his journey, how he's navigating that. So we're both doing that together. You know, I gotta have check-ins with him every now and then to make sure he's okay. He wants to talk about something. I'm open to talk about it because, like I said, he's processing it too.
Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing that. Sometimes it feels like people are afraid to talk about suicidal ideations, maybe feeling like it's going to cause people to be scared or thinking that you're always feeling that way. But it's a reality of life, and we need to be able to have the conversation in a safe environment. And just to be real, people feel that way, especially during the holidays when they may feel this extreme sense of loss for whatever the reason, a person that they want in their life that is not there anymore for whatever the reason is. So I really appreciate you being vulnerable in that moment and allowing me to ask you that question, and then also to just share your experience, because I believe that would help someone who is thinking about not living anymore. It is a very real feeling, and people need to know that they have someone that they can talk to. So I want to share now that if you or someone you love or care about is experiencing suicidal ideations, know that you can call 988 to have intervention to help you process your thoughts, to help prevent the completion of suicide. You can call 988 for immediate help, and it is readily available to you. And if you are experiencing any type of substance use abuse, we want to make sure that people know about the resources that are available. And again, during this time, people can feel an extreme sense of loneliness, sadness, just not wanting to be around anybody. And that is okay. But I want to let you know that there are resources available, confidential resources available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Resources that are available. So again, you can call 988. You can also text NAMI, NAMI, to 721-721. And NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. There are several mental health organizations that are available globally throughout the year. And again, here with Corey Empowers and Mental Wealth Wednesdays, we don't limit our mental health discussions to Wednesdays or any particular acknowledged month, day, or week, but throughout the year. Mental health is a 365 issue. It's a global issue. And we want to do all we can to help people know about the resources that are available. So again, you could go to NAMI.org or 721-721 and text NAMI for immediate assistance. And you can also call 988. So encourage you to look into that for yourself. And also, since we've been focused on grief today, and Monday, thank you so much for sharing your story. But I wanted to just share another resource, which is the Grief Recovery Handbook. It is a handbook, but there are in-person courses throughout the country, and I believe internationally now. The authors of the handbook are Russell Friedman and John W. James. And the book is called The Grief Recovery Handbook. And through the handbook, it helps you to understand what losses are and what we may think of as losses, like Monday had mentioned earlier, that it can be not just the death of someone, but the loss of a friendship, the loss of a job, any type of relationship or something that you were attached to that you no longer have in your life can be considered a loss. And my introduction to this grief recovery handbook was through a relative who went through the program at her church, and she recommended that I do it at the time that I was going through with even thinking about going through a divorce. And I remember signing up Monday, and they had a waiting list, and I was like, "Oh, by the time they call me, I ain't gonna need this." But I signed up, and when my name came up and they called me to join the next session, I absolutely needed it.
Yeah.
And what I was told at maybe the first session was that a lot of people go through the program and they realize that whatever loss they thought initiated them to sign up for this course is not the only loss that they will understand they have experienced in their lives. And that was something that was very impactful for me, because what I learned is that I have had a lot of loss, things that I did not realize were considered to be losses in my life. But I learned a tremendous amount through that course, and I highly recommend it for anyone. Even if you just get the book and read it for yourself, it's way more beneficial to actually go through the program. And a lot of people end up becoming trained and becoming facilitators for the course. So again, it's called the Grief Recovery Handbook, and the authors are Russell Friedman and John W. James. I encourage you to look that up as well and just have it as a resource in your toolkit. Or perhaps you know someone who is experiencing loss, and it be something that you can provide to them. So Monday, again, we are here, Christmas Day, and people are grieving. People may be tuning in to this session today, knowing that we're talking about some aspect of mental health and wellness. Overall, what do you want to share with people this holiday season, this Christmas Day? You have talked about your faith and how it has been an important part of your journey in dealing with your grief. What do you say to others who are experiencing a tremendous amount of grief on Christmas Day?
I would actually tell them that you're definitely not alone. That's one. God does see exactly what we're going through. So I'll use my faith is lean into Him. He somehow gives you beauty for ashes. He really does. And I do believe, I believe by faith that He would never leave me and He would never forsake me, but He knows the plans for my life, and it's not to harm me. It's to prosper me. It's to restore me. So that's what I've grasped onto for these years. And there is joy on the other side. Like I said, you can house joy as well, even with sorrow.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Well, we have had a great discussion, and I truly appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. You have a powerful story, one that can help a multitude of people, not just here in the U.S., but throughout the world. And I appreciate you joining us here on Corey Empowers with the Mental Wealth Wednesday on Christmas Day to share at this very important time in this moment where a lot of people are experiencing grief and not knowing what to do with how they're feeling. So I hope through listening to this session and your story that people have some bits of tools, resources, something that they can add to their lives to help them to navigate how they're feeling, and ultimately to know that it's okay not to feel okay. And when they are ready to join in and tap into the resources, that they know where to go. So thank you again for joining me Monday and sharing your story. I wish you and your family the best, and wish you and your family a very, very Merry Christmas and a very happy and prosperous New Year.
Thank you. Same to you as well.